All right. So I know you guys know our nutrition prescription, right? We've talked about that a million times. And it's easy to like tell somebody, eat meats, vegetables, nuts and seeds, some fruit, little starch, no sugar at levels that support exercise but not excess body fat. I think it's a statement that's a lot easier said than done, especially on the back half of it. So just with that statement, before we start to talk about like practicals, mistakes I've made with I think myself and people, Justin, we're gonna do like almost like a practical approach to nutrition today. On just that statement of like what CrossFit's nutrition prescription is, do you guys have any thoughts, questions? Like a good example would be is someone asked me one time, what should I classify potatoes as? Because they're like it's a vegetable, but it's also a starch, like things like that. Like it could be questions that your clients have asked you. Do you guys have anything there that we should unpack before we get into this? I think for y'all, it's probably pretty straightforward.
I mean, I think that's a good question. Is
What
it
would you
like
classify
this?
potatoes?
And wouldn't they be both?
It's both. Yeah, that's the real answer. For most people, I'm gonna classify it as a carb. Is that like that starchy element in it? Because what I don't want to happen is, and the reason I say most people is a lot of people I think that are going to approach us in the gym about nutrition. They're probably trying to lose weight. So I don't want to accidentally overdo the carbohydrates. Like what I wouldn't want to happen is that they bake a potato, they've got a potato on their plate or a sweet potato on their plate, and then they go, okay, vegetable check. I can also put rice on my plate. And you see how it accidentally doubles. And like technically
Yeah.
they listen to what you said, but they just don't have the knowledge base behind it. So most of the time, for sure, in that starch category. And then if it's somebody that is like a high level athlete, I'm not really as worried about that, right? Like their carbohydrate intake is going to be very, very different than the person that has insulin sensitivity. Um, so little shit like that will definitely come up sometimes. I heard a statement the other day that I really liked. It was pick it, grow it, pick it, kill it. Does it land in one of those three? If it doesn't land in one of those three, then question it, basically. And I was like, that's pretty damn good. Because if you follow in that rule, right, you're gonna land on meats, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, yada yada yada. The one thing I'll say is there's items that start to get into like gray area. So like a good example is, client going, can I have Greek yogurt? I didn't grow Greek yogurt. I didn't harvest it or whatever the case may be, but it's not a bad choice, right? It's a great choice of protein. But then we look Greek yogurt, it comes from milk and it does come from a whole source. There's going to be some gray ones that like you'll have to individually kind of talk through with your clients. But if you can give them that rule, it keeps a really easy roadmap. One of my favorite examples is broccoli tater tots. And it's kind of funny because it's a tater tot. It just happens to be a green tater tot, but it's a tater tot. It's not broccoli. And people will go, oh, I'm gonna, do that, and that's my vegetable source. No, you didn't grow a broccoli tater tot. Um, anything else or thoughts like as I'm kind of rifting there before we go into
Yeah,
practice?
I saw Renaissance periodization, and he was talking about that it's a good statement for generalizing for most of the people, but he used the example of protein shake, like the protein, the scoop, that's ultra processed, and that it's actually very good for
Could
you.
be a
So
really good application. That's why I think the answer to most questions are it depends. Because if someone goes, should I have a protein shake? And they're coming 5 days a week to my CrossFit class, they're trying to live just a really long life. Like, do they need a protein shake? No. If they're eating, what our prescription is and they're eating 3 to 5 times a day, they're going to be very healthy and they're going to get stronger. It's not going to be at the rate that my semifinals athlete needs. Like, they need to get their protein in 100% every single day, and like I'll use that supplementation for them, or they also it's just a different ball game.
the other
So
the
there's
other statement, sorry, the other statement
go
is
go go.
like control the basics before going to the specifics, because sometimes like would be like, but it's 0.7 per kilogram of protein, or is it 1, or is it 1.2? But you're
Are you
still
just
eating
having it
sugar.
on your plate? Yeah. That's something I'm gonna get into. I have an example of a client right now that her things up there, and if you look at it, it's like this is really good, but it could be better. And then I have another example that I just typed out. I didn't even send her text to share with you guys because it's so laughable. Um, that you're like, if you just eat anything, this is better than what you're doing, kind of vibe. So yeah, like controlling the basics, not majoring in the minors is a big one. And then that also makes me think of like supplementation. Like if you're not eating whole foods through your day, you shouldn't be spending $100 on all your supplements that you're going to have. Like that's the tip of the iceberg, the tip of the spear, the last 1%, if everything else is going right. And I know, at least in my gym and a lot of people I talk to, they're really fast to go, do you think this peptide's going to work? And I'm like, how about stop drinking Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night? Like, let's go there first. And they don't really want to hear that, but it's the truth, you know? So that's always a good thing to follow up on. Justin, what were you going to say?
It sort of falls in the it depends category too. Is has to do with bread, even with pastas as well.
That's a big depends one.
Yeah, because they just vary so much, and even they not only do they vary with like seeded bread and wheat bread, all that kind of stuff. Like depends on like if you're in Europe, the pastas and the breads and
Totally different
ways that
product.
they're like manufactured and processed is different than they are here. So, like I've been trying to figure out what is happening with the bread here in the U.S. versus the bread in Europe. Like I've heard it before, but I'm like, what can I find this kind of bread here that's processed or being made in Europe? Because I'm not sure what that bread is.
I would off topic a little bit. I would try to look for a local bakery that's doing sourdough if you like that. Because that process and how you make that, it's just a fermentation process, and it is a bit different. I'm not a bread expert by any means, but I also think it's much lower on like how much. Yeah, I'm blanking on the word.
Yeah, I knew you're talking about.
Um, it's just a better quality, and like you're not getting all these ingredients. This was 10 years ago at this point. Um, the medical office I used to work with, she actually used bread and pasta as an example in the European example like you're talking about. And this could be totally different now. But I know in the United States, the way they cut the wheat, so
Yeah.
basically, let's say you've got a wheat. In Europe, they use the whole grain, right?
Yes.
And that's going to be used. Here, we cut it like 10 times. So if you've got the grain of wheat, it gets cut, bleached, and then we do it again, and then we do it again. So basically, like by the time you get to this end product of bread, it wasn't this actual whole grain wheat that got put in the bread. It was like an eighth of what it originally was with a bunch of like preservatives. Um, by no means am I a bread expert. That may be totally different now, but I know like what the original intent of bread was. We're cutting it to try to maximize profit. And I think that's probably a big part of why our breads and pastas are so different here than they are overseas. This was a GI medical place, and we had clients that were from France and Spain. They would just rip bread and pasta. That was their life in like champagne. They had no issues. The moment they got to this country, they immediately had issues. So, and then their diet didn't change, just the type of processed product did. But yeah, I would look for like on topics like that. If you can find like a local place that's making it and it's a little more like mom and pop from scratch, like that, that would be the vibe I shoot for. And that's what I recommend clients because like I don't want you to also torture yourself, right? If you want to have pasta night, like do it. Like it's better than going out to a restaurant for sure. And if you can even go a step above and beyond and find a good source or something that's imported, like that's just even better. What I would say to that is that's a good conversation for us on this group that we have this knowledge base. That would not be a conversation I'm necessarily worried about with certain people because, like Jose said, like they're still ripping Kit Kats and Diet and Coca Colas, you know. So it depends. Like it's really an it depends one, like you said. Um, Big sourdough fan, by the way. Fucking amazing. Yeah, D is too. All right, so let's pull up. Actually, I want to get into one thing before I pull it up. So in my initial start, like helping people with diet, I think one of my biggest mistakes was kind of like what Jose was talking about. Like you want to see these results really quickly, right? So you want to take this person and in 21 days, you want them to go, I've lost 5 pounds. I feel great. Look at my picture. And like we're looking for that. And I think that's a trap for a couple reasons. One, I don't think it's a super sustainable thing that you can introduce to most people. Like if I'm talking to D and D goes, I'm going to weigh and measure everything and I'm going to lock in, like she knows what that's like. There's a lot more chance of success there than my client Martha that has never done any of it. So one step at a time is a really good approach, even though that one step is not going to necessarily move the boulder quickly, because it's a sustainable approach. So early mistakes, too much, too fast. People can't maintain it. By day 3, 4, shit has already gotten weird. And then 2, trying to kind of focus on the minors. Like pick a major, and like I've got 3 for me. 1, eating. It sounds stupid, but there's a lot of people that don't eat. So just getting meals in may be your major. Don't care what it is right now. We're just going to get in the habit of a meal happening. 2, protein. 3, vegetables and fruit. Depending on who it is and what's already happening, will have me choose, are we going to focus protein or are we going to focus vegetables and fruit? If I've got overeaters and somebody that's just loading plates, vegetables and fruit are my go-to. Why do you guys think that is? You guys can unpack this.
I still sort of disagree with that statement too.
Why?
Because if you consume heavy on the protein, it helps you become more satiated, and you could potentially eat less of the carbs, of the greens. I always think lead with the protein, get your protein in, and then let everything else follow from there.
Satiation from protein, yes. But if I've got somebody overeating and they're eating things like chicken thighs and stuff like that, which I'm not opposed to, they're also going to consume a lot of fat and the calorie count doesn't go down.
It's going to be hard for them.
That's the tricky with protein.
If you have them eat red, lean meat, it's going to be hard for them to eat a lot of lean, red meat too.
And
what
I've also found, this is just from my experience, and I kind of I didn't make this. I steal this from E.C. Sinkowski. Her thing is vegetables and fruit first, and then she goes protein as pillar 2. Precision Nutrition goes protein 1 and then vegetables, fruit 2. I like both approaches. That's why I'm not married to one. That's why it depends for me. But she does the flip side because protein tends to be a little bit harder to figure out as well. So
I'll say one thing about that. If you are a person that you know you're getting that number of protein that you need per day, then I will flip that. If you know you're going to get 160 grams of protein for myself a day, then I do want to eat with more of the fiber-esque, something more fibery. And then but I feel like most people at the gym, it's like they're not even getting enough protein. I'm like, let's get the protein down.
Okay, but let's talk most people at the gym. They have no habits built either. So do you think, and I'm playing devil's advocate back to it here a little bit, do you think you would have more success developing an easier habit, even though that may not, because I'm not disagreeing with you on the protein at all. I do think arguably more important, especially like among women with like muscle and bone density as they age type thing. But do you think establishing a habit and then going to like phase 2 that's going to be a little tougher could be more successful than the one that's confusing? Because what I've found for us, it's not a hard thing to figure out protein because we're like very immersed in this. But for the average person, which I'm going to show you guys one of my clients in a second, it's a fucking challenge. And then especially if someone goes, I don't do dairy, or I'm vegan, or I'm vegetarian, it gets even harder. Like usually vegan, vegetarian, obviously vegetables or fruit are not an issue for them at all. Sometimes it is. Sometimes people are just ripping like Impossible burgers. But it's more about like establishing a habit pattern. Precision Nutrition, their actual first step, I forgot the guy's name. It's John, whatever, the guy who wrote that whole protocol. He doesn't even actually start with food. He starts with a multivitamin. vitamin. And he's like, you can buy whatever you want. I don't give a shit if it's a good product or a bad product. But the reason he starts people on that is it's not about the vitamin, it's about establishing a habit. And he's just trying to get the first like win box on the habit before he starts working on like the actual things. I think that's the hardest part. So whether it's like protein or, you know, like fruit and vegetable focus, just getting them to have a positive repeat of what's happening day to day. Does that make sense? And that's why I say sometimes it's just eating. Let me pull up my whiteboard. This is like an actual text I got one time.
I've seen a few things like well, easy I think is start with 800 grams of fruits and vegetables. The 800,
Yeah, that's
800 grams challenge. I've seen also like start with water, like drink
Yeah, I've
more
done
than
water
2
with
liters of
people.
water, or start tracking down your all the thing that you eat, so people be aware of what they are eating, everything. I don't mind if you're putting Snickers, Kit Kats there. That's fine. Just be aware that what are you eating, so be everything. So there are different approaches, I guess.
Yeah, I've started people off with water. And it's literally just about like what are they mentally able to do. And like to Justin's point with the protein, I've started people off with protein too. And like that's the only thing I care about. Like if they have a chicken breast for dinner and the Snickers on the side, I blindly don't look at the Snickers for a second. I'm like, fuck yeah, you got your chicken breast in. So it really does depend, I think, on the person. This was like an actual, I'm typing this up. You guys can see the whiteboard. This was like a literal, I'm like not even exaggerating. Old client texted me. She's like, hey, I need help with my nutrition. I've lost X amount of weight. I'm not losing any more weight. I'm not leaning out, or that's not the word she used. I'm not toning up was like the word I think she actually used. And I was like, all right, hey, this next week, I just want you to jot down, like you're talking about, Jose, jot down what you're doing. I always like to see what's happening because to like Justin's point, protein, we need to get that in. So if like someone sends me something and they're crushing their, you know, they're hitting their meals a day, they're having some fruits and vegetables in, even though it may not be as much as I like my focus goes to protein automatically. This person sent me the text and like, no shit. Monday, this is basically what was written. Wednesday, pretty much what was written. I always have them do 2 or 3 weekdays and at least a weekend because weekend, we know how that goes, right? It gets real weird on the weekend sometimes. And like, this is what she sent me. What would you guys tell this person to do? Like, and this is not an exaggeration.
Oh,
This is
I
literally
just
what's
remember
happening.
I just remember what I wanted to say before. So water, protein, vegetables. And the other day I saw EC interviewing someone that she loves, and he said that he likes to tell them sleep 8 hours because that's the apparently to with his experience that's the most problematic thing to his clientele. Like nobody's sleeping enough, which triggers everything to be pro-inflammation and
There's a guy at Riptide right now that I work with, and the only thing, and he's getting frustrated with me, but I'm not willing to give him more right now. The only thing I'm trying to have him do is sleep because he's sleeping like 2 hours a night, and then he's trying to go to the gym and hammer, and dude, he's like literally falling apart. And I think what's happening is he's so like on top of it. Like besides the hormones, I think he's also just so tired that it's time to cook dinner and he doesn't have the juice. So what's he do? He breathes. So and it's literally he's just exhausted. So sleep's a huge one. Sleep's arguably more important than I think what's going in if that's not happening. What would you tell this person to do?
Have lunch.
Fucking eat
Have
something,
something for
right?
lunch.
Yeah, just something. And that's
Anything.
where yeah, that's where I started her. And her number one concern was I'm not getting tone. What makes you tone, guys? Muscle, right? We gotta have muscle.
I see this
Just
and I think this is above my pay grade as a CrossFit coach. This
it's
person needs
crazy.
to see someone
Mm,
beyond
I
what
know
I'm
what you're
doing.
about to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a chance it's super spot on.
That's
And I
an
actually
eating
don't.
disorder.
Yeah, I actually do not work with her anymore. I told her we did it for a couple months, and I told her like she needs a little more psychological support. I don't know if she ever went and got it. I referred her to somebody that a friend gave me. I don't know if she's there, but like turns out she was so psychologically, I think it was an eating disorder. Like she was damaged. She was so afraid to put food in her mouth because she thought she was going to go back to what she was because she's lost all this weight. Some people, it's not always the case. Like they just go, well, I wake up, I get my kids ready, I go to work, I work all day, and I'm just not taking the time. Like sometimes it's really that. But like for her, she just needs to eat something. I was like, whatever you like. She's like, I like sandwiches. I'm like, okay, have half of a sandwich at lunch. Doesn't even need to be a whole one. Make it. If you do it on Monday, you got two. You got one for Monday, you got one for Tuesday, right? I didn't even care what it was. It was just about getting it going. So I use her as an example on this because it doesn't have to be complex. Like we just need to get a habit going on that. And to Justin's point, if you even remotely feel like you're like, he goes, ooh, he looks at that and he goes, you might not be in my pay grade. Don't try to make it your pay grade. We hosted one time at Riptide a nutrition, just very simple, eat meats, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, like very simple nutrition seminar. And we got into a little bit on like weighing and measuring. Like I wanted them to have the tool if they wanted it. And one of the girls who came she was very open and she was, I want to say she was anorexic. And she was like, for the first time in my life, I'm starting to eat a little bit, like three times a day. And the person I was doing the seminar with goes, you should weigh and measure food. And you could see her eyes well up, and that was a very stressful thing, and he was like, "All you gotta do is for a month." That was, I think, like, a line that, like, "No, dude, that's literally not our job." That is a psychologist that's going to work specifically with nutrition, which they exist, right? That's someone that needs help. So, being able to recognize that, I think, is a big one. Um, let's go next one. This one's a little more fun, I think. Let's just take a minute, kinda read through that. This one's up your alley, Justin.
The other thing is that if you ask them what they eat and apparently it's perfect. And the first thing is like, okay, trust them. Trust that they are eating like that, like perfectly eating. Just make some recommendations based on portions or macros, whatever.
Whatever it might be. I don't ever think someone's lying when they send me something. I have had some miscommunications. One of the earliest people I ever like went to help, we just went like uber basic, right? And this was like before I would just choose one thing. So I was like, this is what I want your plate to look like. And I was like, I want a protein, a vegetable, and then a carbohydrate. And I didn't relay enough education. And like 2 months went by, 3 months went by, and they like nothing was happening. And I was like, what are you doing? And they had a little journal and they were literally writing down chicken breast, veggie, and they would write like varied veggie, and then they would write potatoes. And I'm like, this is not that bad. They're doing fucking good. Do you know what they were doing? We had a KFC by the gym. They were going to KFC. They were getting a fried chicken breast. They were getting potato wedges and eating corn. Right. And it was like in the miscommunication that I didn't ask enough questions that I was like, holy shit, we're just eating fast food every day. That is not what I meant, like at all. So that person wasn't lying. They were writing down what they were doing, but I did need to ask more. So sometimes just asking to be very clear is a good thing. And then like she does a really good job on this. Like if you go through, you go coffee with milk, glass of wine. Like you see these liquids getting inputted too, because another one that'll happen is like you'll look at it and you're like, damn, pretty damn good. But they're also drinking 7 Dr. Peppers. And if you miss the 7 Dr. Peppers, eat all the vegetables you want, probably not going to get the results you want. So if you don't see liquids, like always ask about water because obviously the hydrate is a really big one. But like check with that because they could be doing something that is not good at all, or they could be like me and drinking 900 milligrams of caffeine every day, which is also bad because that's gonna spike up your cortisol, and that could also lead to not losing weight in the midsection. Looking at Michelle here, what would you guys recommend kind of going through what her average day is? Like Monday and Tuesday are pretty much snapshots. She sent me a shitload. It's pretty much spot on. Weekends pretty much exactly the same. There's just more alcohol happening on the weekend. What would you
But,
say
like,
Michelle needs?
Under
what is
protein,
her?
Yeah,
I say she's probably around like maybe 80 grams of protein,
maybe.
90,
Yeah,
90 at the
she
most,
ain't very high.
depending on how much her protein shake is consuming in that and how much of this
D her
quarter of a cup of a quarter of the shrimp bowl.
her goal is just to lean up a little bit. She is also breastfeeding right now, so she's like postpartum. So there's also a lot. There's a rebuilding process going on as far as her health goes. Um, yeah, protein spot on, right? You look at the day and you go coffee with milk. She's gonna get a couple grams in the milk. She's obviously pretty into health stuff. Like, I'm not going to take a juice shot with oregano oil if I'm not. So, like, that tips you off that she cares about what's really going on here. And then you look at lunch and you're like, damn, there's really like not a lot in lunch. Like, the peanut butter has a couple, the cheese has a couple, and the walnuts have a couple, but it ain't really like a meal worth. And then dinner's beautiful. Like, she's got her shrimp bowl one day, she's got her boneless you know, chicken the next night. So dinner, we know we're getting it in. So then it just became getting it in. Let's get more in the daytime. For her, I didn't even have her starting with both. I was like, we're just gonna start to get more in, and I let her choose. I think sometimes, like, I don't want to say sometimes, letting them come up with the route, I think gives a lot more effectiveness rather than telling them exactly what to do. And then eventually that route starts to get narrowed down, right? So I go, hey, would you rather have more protein in breakfast or would you rather try to focus on it during lunch? She picked lunch, right? Breakfast is like the person's like, oh, I love scrambled eggs. That's a good one for them. For her, she literally told me I hate eggs. They don't do it for me. They make me nauseous. So I was like, lunch is going to be way easier. And then from there, I always like to send like recommendations, right? Ask her what she likes, and I just base it around what she likes to eat. So for her, she added in a Greek yogurt for lunch, and now she's got about like 18 grams there. So like paired with what she's normally doing, we're at an okay serving for her at lunchtime. And then what we've done is I like the 21-day mark for habit. That's why I like to use that mark. So 3 weeks. If we're locked in for 3 weeks, then we go step two. Step two being breakfast. So you see how it's like we're adding protein in, but it's like at this walking pace of adding it in, right? Because Michelle's not trying to go to the CrossFit Games. She's just trying to get healthy. She's trying to lean up a little bit over time and just keep that trend going in the right direction. Like, she's going back home this summer. She wants to look not 9 months pregnant when she goes back home. That was literally what she quoted me. Right. So Justin, that was good. Yeah, spot on with the protein. Other than that, let's say she starts crushing protein. What else might you do? We have not got here yet. We're still working breakfast protein, by the way. What do you guys think?
She's
This is
trying-
this is a
Yeah.
this is
she's
a tricky
going
one.
fat too. I'd say she's probably 30, under 40 grams of fat, maybe.
I think that's a tricky one. I think that one can depend. I think it could go that direction, or I think she could be one of these sneaky, accidentally too much people. And I'm gonna unpack why I potentially think that. Like, not a whole lot going on in the mornings for as far as fat goes. Like, depending on, I think Stiggy's pretty low if I remember right. I love name brands, by the way. When people put name brands, I can literally look it up. So like morning's pretty damn good, but like this one, for example, fat, 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 depending on how much is happening, right? They could be tiny ass little servings, like two handfuls of walnuts, probably more fat than people realize. And then I know me and most human beings, we don't do 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. Usually it's way more, and we think it's 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. But on her, the one that kind of gets me is what's happening with these dinners. Shit, I cut that one off. But it's
Yeah,
like
there's no butter or no fat that she's cooking with. So she might be
that
using
and
it.
I don't know exactly like, yeah, she doesn't have those listed in. And I don't the thing I'm gonna follow up and ask, like, are you guys buying shrimp, putting turmeric, putting garlic, doing that, or is this like a TV dinner vibe? Because that's a tricky one. I've had people do that where they go, "Oh, I've got, XYZ, da 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 da," and you're like, "Damn, that sounds like a beautiful meal." And then I find out this was at the restaurant down the street, which knowing her, it probably is. And what do restaurants use a fucking lot of, and why their food tastes real good? Facts,
So boring.
right? Fajitas is a great example of that. Like if I make fajitas at home and I use a tablespoon of olive oil versus I get fajitas at a Mexican restaurant, my caloric count maybe 1,000 calories different on the same size meal. And that's just because the number of fat they cook with. So like I'm like almost being an investigator here. And I'm looking at that going, like, what exactly is happening with this? Right. And like this is a good example, can of light coconut milk light. So we know coconut milk has fat and like how much is actually still in it. You know what I mean? So if we've got protein, she's doing pretty good. We got the protein happening at breakfast, we got the protein happening at lunch, and she goes, nothing has moved. Right. And I'm like, damn, well, you do great. You got these fruits, you got these vegetables. I really like what's going on there. I've got to look at the fat that's hidden. Right. Because sometimes that's not something people are seeing. You don't get really like you do get satiated off of it. But like if making my eggs in the morning, for example, if I use butter or I use olive oil in the pan to cook those eggs up, the difference of putting it in a tablespoon and putting it in the pan and like doing this and eyeballing could be hundreds of calories. So it's a really, really sneaky one. I just had this exact conversation with Hannah at our gym. She's trying to lean up, hopefully going into World Fitness in the games. And her nutritionist was like, you're fucking cooking with way too much fat and you're just getting too much calories. And that's why you're not leaning, even though you've made these other carbohydrate adjustments. Right. So, like, looking for the hidden things. I know for me, it was peanut butter for a long time, was just putting that in my oatmeal. The serving was way too much. And I was eating just way more calories than I need to. So remembering that relationship of cows in versus cows out, that's going to dictate our weight. But then the relationship of the balance of protein, carbohydrates, and fat, that's going to dictate our aesthetic and composition. Right. So for one way, like too tilted, then I may lose weight. But like, you ever see like the skinny fat people? I know you like to use that word sometimes, right? And you're like, you lost weight, but you're still like frumpy almost. That's where you'll see like that kind of stuff happen. So it's really a pie. Like we need multiple things happening there as well. Let's make one up. Or did anybody want to do any of y'all's? I can do mine. Let's type in my day. That'll be fun. You guys can nutrition my ass. I'm gonna try to give y'all times too, because I think that is a part of my scenario. I'm an ideal client, so I'm giving you all the information. I'm trying to be honest, put myself on spot. That didn't work. Almost done. Almost done. All right, so looking at my day, fucking dinner's weird, so I'm just gonna put carb. Looking at my day, what jumps out to you guys?
A huge gap
Yeah.
from like lunch to 6 p.m.
Yeah, the times are fucked, right? Super weird. So looking at those times, the reason I added them for you guys is like I think if you look at my day, if I'm not dicking around, which I have my moments on the weekend, like we're just looking at my good weekday, right? Let's say this is happening most of the time, and I'm telling you, I'm not leaning up. I'm trying to lose weight. What's happening? This is like we gotta think a second. What's happening in my day, right? These two are super crammed, right? And this is kind of based around my schedule a little bit. And then there's this fucking huge gap. And then I don't want to say these two are as crammed, but it's like 2 and 2, right? What's happening there? I get this big spike of blood sugar, and then it completely crashes. And then I get a big spike of blood sugar again. Right. And it's like these two waves. Why would that not be a good thing? Potentially could be, and I probably am, a little bit on like the insulin sensitivity side, right? Because I have these two big spikes. What's another sign that you could tell someone might be like getting to that kind of pre-diabetic vibe stage by looking at them? Do you guys know that? Jose, you probably know that. You ever see people that kind of look like a pear? I don't want to sound mean, but it's like they're got skinny legs, they got skinny arms,
Midsection.
their midsection's real blown up. They usually got real big love handles kind of vibe. That's another sign that we're in that range. So like when you start to see people or like a schedule like this, I want to try to balance out my blood sugar, right? Let's try to keep that train moving all day long. Now, this is, I think, challenging because for me, it gets very revolved around work, right? And I can't always necessarily sit down and have like an entire meal. But what could I do here? Like, what could be an idea that may work for me?
I mean, I think that if you could have, your yogurt a little bit earlier and then at 6 p.m. you have like dinner, then that would help. Because also, what's not helping you is that you're having such a late dinner and then you're going to sleep. So,
Yeah, I walk out of the gym at 9 o'clock at night, right? So like, that's why dinner's at 9:45. That's not a pleasure
Mhm.
thing there. So like, we got to consider that. So, like for me, right, and I'm being the client here. I'm sorry, but I'm not waking up at 6 a.m. to have breakfast and getting my last meal here and then not eating. Like that's not going to be an option. Like that is not going to psychologically work for me. So it's not going to work. I don't think you're wrong. Some people might go, that's not bad. Right. And they're like, I can do that. Or they have the idea. So I think that's not a bad spot. But like I am telling you, I'm being a stubborn hard ass here. I'm eating dinner after I get home from the gym.
then
I will
Then
keep
you
you at
need-
12 hours fasting, like you don't want it, but then put together, make it a brunch, and then help keep the same thing.
That could maybe work. Like make it. I totally lied to you guys too. I didn't put my 6 a.m. coffee with milk here. So we're technically not fasting. I didn't write the liquids down. Yeah, maybe making a brunch here. And then because the gap between like the 6 and 9, 9:30, 9:45 dinner is like is a decent normal, I would say, eating gap. It's just this one is so far right? So maybe if I move down this a little bit, I do, for me, an intermittent fast could work really well and I get these like balanced times through. That could possibly work. I like that one. What if I
Or you
split
can
thing?
have, if you eat heavier at your 6 p.m. and then maybe for dinner you have the Greek yogurt, it'll
Swap it.
be lighter, but yeah.
Don't mind that. That could maybe be a good one here too, right? And like, why am I doing a lighter one here? Right? I'm in between classes. It's fast. Right. So like those, like what is actually happening? And then like, why do I go from 12:30 vibe somewhere in there to like the first, then the next meal going at 6? I like to work out at 2:30, 3 o'clock. Right. So like that becomes a factor. So for me, I used to not be like this, but now if I eat too big, I can't work out. I get too full, right? So that's why I'm shoving this in earlier. And I'm exposing myself. This is like real schedule here, right? I'm shoving this earlier. It's a full size meal, so I have enough time to digest before then I work out, right? So what could be another a solution that I'm like annoyed that I don't do this because I'm a coach, but like
Eating something right after working out.
yeah, or like breaking it up and being smaller. So like,
Mm.
what if I took this lunch and I had not this huge meal, but it could be even just be half, right? It could be the same normal size meal that I have, and I have half of it at 12:30, and then I have the other half at 4:30 when I finish. You know what I mean? Like, do you see now how I've not taken this 5 6 hour gap, 6 hour gap, and I've taken it's the same amount of food, but now I've just split it up and kind of gone there. And not that someone needs to carry around the Tupperware and only have eaten half and done it. It just may look like, you know, a Greek yogurt there, and then like a piece of fruit and something in a protein shake on the other end of that. Like, get creative with it. But now I also have these smaller meals through the day, which is also going to balance out my blood sugar levels through the day as well. And then I'm not someone that really gets hangry, but there's people that get real hangry and agitated. Like we also avoid these hanger spikes just from everybody around them. So like I bring this up because like my actual input of what I'm having isn't bad. It's pretty whole food, like surrounded, right? But where I could get better is I could time this better. Um, Also, too, I'll let you some insight for me on this breakfast. I go, oh, I have scrambled eggs. I have some air fried potato and fruit. On the day that I've got these going on, minus the fruit, because I'm not putting butter and oil on fruit. That'd be weird. Um, when I do my macros, I nail about 55 grams of fat. So, like, if you're looking like 45 to 55, when you're looking at like, I'm going to try to lean up, like this, what I put in the pan and cook my eggs and then adding that cheese and then putting butter on my toast or tossing my potatoes in olive oil, like that's one of those examples of accidentally getting a sneaky, really high calorie count. And then that puts me over this edge of being in a slight deficit to lose weight. You guys kind of see that? Nutrition's hard because there's so many freaking things that could go wrong, right? You look at that and you go, hell yeah. And if I don't put times, you look at that and go, yeah, keep doing it. Like, that's great. So, like, if you look at somebody's thing, start just asking questions. What are you cooking in? What times are you eating? Are you drinking your water? Are you sleeping? Like, have your questions ready because, like, someone's not gonna, there is a couple people that are really, really good at this. I feel like Justin would be amazing at this. Like, they're gonna write down all the data for you and they're going to give you everything you need off the rip. That's a great person. Most people aren't. Most people are typing it out how I typed it out, and you have to ask some of those questions. Um, and every single person's different. So don't have a set married, I'm going to do this first. Talk to them because sometimes protein's a good start. Sometimes people are ripping protein and getting fruits and vegetables is a good start. Sometimes it's just eating. Sometimes it's like, hey, let's have 2 less beers on Saturday night. And like that being a real one, which I've started with people. right? The guy ate great, but he was just ripping like fucking 12 beers every Friday and Saturday night. And I'm like, holy shit, dude. Like, it's great you're eating broccoli, but like we got to slow that down. And on that front too, I think that's a moderation thing, right? I don't want him to not go see his friends. That's good. That's good for your health. But he doesn't need to be Shane Gillis every time he sees his friends and drink a 12 pack,
Mhm.
right? We can help moderate that. What else? Anything else you guys got?
I'm actually curious what the percentage of the population has some sort of psychological issue with food where we
I
can
would guess a lot more people than we think.
25%, because we can
I
tell them
think it's
all the
probably
things.
higher than that.
Don't stop knocking down those beers and try to avoid the sugar, and we can say all the things, and it's just not going to happen because
Doesn't really mean shit
issues
sometimes.
or relationship with food or stress, and it's like I don't even
I think
help Justin, just stay in line with your carbs and your protein, and then it's like 10 o'clock at night comes and like I'm stressing or whatever, I'm like, just knock down the sleep
out the window.
whatever. And
I
it's
think
not about the alarm, it's about something else in the mind.
one of the most important things that I think should be a question, like almost off the rip, to see where it lies is there a support person in your life that's going to help you with this? And I don't mean me if I'm helping them make better decisions. I mean, like, are your friends going to be on board with helping you do this? Is your significant other going to be on board with helping you do this? Because if you go home and your boyfriend or girlfriend's like, fucking pizza night,
It doesn't help. Yeah.
you're fucked. Like, you're not going to make the right choice. And you're not going to eat a salad while they sit there and eat their deep dish pizza. That's just, we know that's not going to happen. So I think like the support and things like that around do make a really big difference too. And people also have to want to change. Like, I think that's a big one. And I think it has to feel like 1 out of 10, one being this is impossible, 10 being this is the easiest thing I've ever done. They've got to be like, you're disrespecting me. This is too easy. I need more. Like, that's almost how they need to feel to be successful, I think, sometimes, because if they go, I think I can do it, it's not, it's gonna fall flat. It's gonna fall super flat. And I think the other thing that's always good that I like to start off anytime I'm working with somebody new is like, this is a forever journey. This is never going to end. Like, you may go into a maintenance thing one day where I don't have to talk to you all the time, but like, this is not a 8-week thing and then you're going to be where you want to be and we go. That's just not really how it works well. Like, if that's what you want to do, 75 hard is great, but we know what happens at the end of that most of the time, right? So I think like setting the expectation off day one is huge, right? You're not going to lose 15 pounds this month. We're going to try to lose 3 or 4 pounds. And that is if we absolutely crush it. I think that's a big one. Elise on the call, I don't think she would mind me sharing this. I worked with her for a bit on nutrition. And I would say for the first probably 8 weeks, she fought me. This is not working. This is not working. I'm not losing weight. This is not working. And I said, just stick with me. Stick with me. And we just literally went back and forth for like 8 weeks. And then one day she goes, holy shit, I stepped on the scale. I'm lighter. And then her pants started falling off and the shirt started getting too big. And it took 8 weeks to like for her to see anything happen. Right. And that's a coach. That's a level 3 coach that knows better. So, like to Jose's point and Justin's point, the psychological element's going to be there, and you have to reinforce. You have to reinforce. You have to reinforce, and you have to. Like if you're working with somebody, don't let more than a week go by. I wouldn't even do a week without talking to them. Whether that's a text message or something, like you have to be their best friend when it comes to this, basically. Because if more than 5 days goes by, you can better bet when you talk to them, they're going to like, I went to a birthday party and then I also did this on the next day and it'll fall apart. So it has to be like, you have to be very on top of it. Just like coaching, right? How many times do you tell somebody to land with their butt back in a power clean before they get it right? 900? And then they still get it wrong sometimes. It's relentless. It's the same shit as coaching in the gym. We have to be relentless with it. But for here, a lot more.
That's another thing that I wanted to
easing
say,
in.
like that people, what is the storytelling that they come with? like just same thing as coaching. Like sometimes like I try to working out, I never get to stick to anything. And same thing, the people are always come to diet like the same different storytelling, like I've already done this, or I'm a woman, I have different faces, or I don't consume enough magnesium. But address like accept that, but probably it's not there. Probably it's like an excuse
It's an excuse
this in
most of the time.
disguise.
I agree. I think that's a perfect statement. Accept it, but realize it's probably bullshit. Like, don't tell them that. I would say. But like I've heard the same thing. I had a girl that did well, and then she talked to one of these. You guys know these like gurus that are like, we're gonna do the test, and it's gonna be $2,000, and then we're gonna give you all the right supplements and da 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 da. Da. And it was all of this money, spent all this money on testing, and got to the end of it, and it was like, you should just not push as hard at the gym. That was the advice. You have too much intensity in your workouts, and that's why your cortisol levels are high. And I was like, you just spent 3,000 fucking dollars for someone to tell you to take your workouts easier. Like, that's kind of ridiculous. And not a single question on like what was being consumed, right? So a lot of people like to fall on that, like, I need this XYZ. And that's not to say, like, if someone says, oh, I want to test for my hormones, that's not my job. Like, you need to go to someone that's going to do that and is a nutritionist for that. That is not what I do.
Did you ask them what they do after the workouts? They should be bringing
Like,
the
that's a
correct
good, that's a great fucking, yeah, that's a great bring up right there. Yeah. So, I mean, there's just, I think people like to use some of the like fancy shit as an excuse as well. Have you guys heard of the peptide? It's like NA something. You guys know what I'm talking about? Gina, yeah. So it's like, you can tell me I'm not into the peptide thing real hard, but the NA whatever is supposed to be one of the best like longevity adding peptides, amino acids that you can have in your life, and it's fucking expensive. It's like I want to say like $1,200 a shot or something like that. My gym owner he's employed by a peptide company, and they just came. He went to a health summit, and the health summit was like, it's bullshit. All the data shows that this doesn't do it, and then like people are taking these $1,200 shots right now. And like the conversation I was having with them, and I'm like, these are probably people that aren't even eating whole foods, but they're going to spend $1,200 on a shot, right? So I think like, I don't remember if it was Justin or Jose that said it. Like, don't major in the minors, major in the majors, then look at the minors once the majors are done, right? And if someone feels like they need like hormone check or anything that's in that medical world, that's great, that's fine, go do it, but don't let them have that as a total excuse, I would say, either. Jose, go. What were you gonna say?
Easy also has like how to spot when like three, if it's leading with fear, like the reasoning behind is something that is scary for you. If it's something leading with fear, probably it's fake. If it's the only way, like the true, like if you don't do this, you're not doing it the right way. If it's the only way and they have the only truth, that's probably also fake. And I can't remember what's the third one. She says there's three things how to spot when a guru is fake on diet.
I like that. I'll have to try to find that. I really like her content. Um, I also think when I've had people kind of have this conversation with me, and I don't really like go here because it's not what I do. But like, have you guys ever had someone that you know their lifestyle and they go, I just have a underactive thyroid or whatever it is, and you go, yeah, but I'm like, you're fucking ripping McDonald's and doing all these other things, and yes, that might be accurate, but you're like, nothing you're doing is also helping your case. And it's like, that's their reasoning, and that's why they can't lose weight, and they have these like absolutes in the sand of why they can't get to where they're going. I think that's one to spot also. And like Justin, you were saying, I think that's probably someone that may need like additional help as well because they have this like wall built, and like I don't know how to break down that wall on things like that. Like that's not what I do. So I think that's good stuff to identify as well. Because like ultimately, I think as a coach, like what is our job? Like if we were going to define a coach, to guide someone to a better outcome, right? Like we were gonna like define it. That's a good way to put it, CD. So if our job is to guide somebody to a better outcome, that may be guiding somebody to a nutrition psychologist or guiding somebody to getting testing, things like that. So like even though those things are out of our realm, I think it's good for us to recognize them so we can still point that person in direction. And technically we're still coaching them, right? That's like literally our job there too. What else you guys got? Got anything before we call it a day? I think we could sum up today's call with everybody's different. Every person's going to be different, right? Having those conversations, making them kind of choose what their action's going to be, and you're just guiding it. I think it's a big one. But one thing I hate is when people go, nutrition's so easy, just do this. It's not. I think it's really hard, and we need to acknowledge that it's really hard and give people grace on that as well. All right, y'all. You guys don't have anything? We will put a bow on this. All right, cool. I'll see you guys on Thursday.
Thank
By the
you.
way,
See ya.
quick side thing. I don't know if you guys follow Denise Thomas and coaches development. She is really high level coach. She's known for her lesson plans. She's doing like it's like a 5-person course. I got fucking the itch and signed up for it. It was super expensive. So I'm gonna try to screen record it and share it with you guys. So we may have some of her content coming. I'm gonna see how that's gonna go down. But I'll share you what I learned in that course going forward too. So we may have some cool stuff down the line. I start on Thursday.
Have you seen those Power Monkey camps?
Yeah, I did a Power Monkey once.
It looks so fun. I want to do
They're
it.
pretty fucking cool. So a lot of knowledge, a lot of specialized knowledge. What I feel like out of Power Monkey, if you guys do get a chance, I do recommend it. Coaching class, you'll get some like little tidbits. But like if you ever want to like deep dive with like a one-on-one client or run any kind of like specialty things, the Power Monkey's really good for that. Like you'll walk away with a lot of tools that like if you go, I want to run a gymnastics clinic, you'll have a lot of tools for a gymnastics clinic or weightlifting clinic, things like that. So it'll give you this like broader advanced specialist, I don't know what the word is, education.
Yeah.
But it's not always as easy to implement in class every time. So like
Yeah.
knowing that, I think
I did the weekend that it's only gymnastics and
short one.
weightlifting. The
Oh,
Power Monkey. And they don't go as CrossFit, which is interesting to see how it's
It's different.
as a specialist of gymnastic and how as a specialist on weightlifting, on point of view on different things like with your hip back or with your knees to forward, that they don't really have those stuff in weightlifting because everybody's different.
Yeah, I actually adopt a lot of my weightlifting off of them because I still think you can coach it the same way, like in class. And then this sounds terrible to say, but then if I know like a seminar staff member's watching me, I'll kind of like put my mask on and do what they want to see. So I'll adapt it that way. But as my own coaching style, I coach a little bit more specialist weightlifting, and same thing with the gymnastics. A lot of the gymnastics is different. And some of the drills that I see CrossFit coaches running, I actually don't like that much because I tend to go more toward that gymnastic side too. So you'll develop like your own, I would say, and then like let your own be okay because there is a lot of stylistic stuff. But just know when to use it and when not to.
My coach did the week of Power Monkey camp and he said it was way better than any CrossFit games, any CrossFit meeting, anything, because you do like a full day of yoga, then go playing, then go to the lake, then a class about mindfulness or
A lot of
mindset
stuff.
or whatever. It's like all day about learning and and implementing. So he said that it was the best.
Also,
As someone
something
who's
too.
never been to camp, it looks so fun.
Yeah, it's like literally camp.
It's like my
Um,
little kid dreams.
Also, too, I think something that we should recognize is like CrossFit and like their coaching and their styles. Like, what are we doing? If we say what's a good CrossFit athlete, they're good at everything. They're not a specialist in anything. So I say, like, what's a good CrossFit coach? We're good at coaching everything, but we're not necessarily a specialist in anything. So when we look at some of the courses that CrossFit itself puts on, we have to kind of remember that. Like, we're coaching for masses, not specialists. And I do think it's our job as coaches to still seek out those specialists to get those nuggets and to advance it, I would say.
Why?
But one thing that he brought is like he saw for the first time people because they have like a big food, big like you can eat whatever. He saw people how to weigh. I mean, like with their eyes only saying, okay, I need a little bit more of vegetable, a little bit more of this. I need more, like how high level people can with the eye
Do
already
that.
know the macros.
For the average person, I've had people do macros for like a week on, week off to teach them that for like someone that's average. You guys know the hand one where it's like palm of protein, yada yada. I find that falls short on macros. So I like kind of customize it and I do like hand and a half, like fist and a half, like stuff like that. I believe the owner of M2 Nutrition is involved with Power Monkey Camp as well. So they've got a whole nutrition thing. I don't know if he still is, but I've listened to some of his lectures. His lectures are pretty good. I think I might have one. I'll send you guys if I can find it. But yeah. Are any of you guys last thing and then we'll go. Are any of you guys going to that coaching conference in Albany by any chance? No. I had a wild hair. I've signed up for that shit too. I'll let you guys know how that is when that comes. I was just curious if any of y'all were heading up there.
I'm like, once I'm a level 3, I definitely want to make the Power Monkey thing happen. But I'm like, I'm not paying
Yeah,
all that money until I need CEUs.
Save that shit for CUs.
Yeah.
That thing is expensive.
Oh yeah. I was like,
That's not a bad move.
yeah.
All
One
right,
day.
guys. One day. Yeah, I like it. Let's go.
See you.
I'll see you guys on Thursday. Or
Yes.
most of y'all on Thursday.
Yeah, bye. Take care.
All right,
Bye.
I'll see you later.